All right, so you got to forgive me. I put on my glasses and then totally just realized that the last video I was working on, the good camera went out, and I was relying on my crappy built-in camera. And so, it's amazing what a difference makes when you're actually wearing your glasses. But it just goes to show you that tech craps out whether you're good at tech or bad at tech. It's the one inevitable. So, excuse me for how I look in this video. You could say hi to my dog there. That's Rosie. And we'll see you in the next video, hopefully a little higher quality.
What would you do if you had a staff that could work 24/7, you didn't have to pay them, and they could accomplish pretty much anything? Well, I asked myself that same question. Let's talk backstory. So, I've been really fascinated by the idea of having these autonomous agents. If you've seen Baby AGI or AutoGPT, you might have noticed that people are trying to use these for all sorts of things. And basically, the idea is that you give it a task and it will go out and do whatever you want it to do. And I haven't been able to get it to do anything particularly useful. Usually, it tries really hard, but then it like spins in circles. And then it's like, I'm going to go do this thing. And it realizes it can't do the thing. So it'll like pretend to do the thing. Here's a great example. I was trying to get one to be a ghostwriter of tweets. And so it decided that it was going to do all this research. And great, it maybe pulled some search results or something. But then it was going to like figure out how to analyze tweets. And so it's like, I'll just call analyze tweets.py, which didn't exist. And so it's like, fine, I'll write analyze.py. And so it did that, but then it got an error message. And so it decided to like rewrite it. And it just had a comment that was like, analyze tweets. Which is funny because then it ran it and it ran it successfully, but it didn't actually do anything. And so it kind of just kept going in this loop. And so I was like, okay, let's take a step back. And what if instead of having like these fully autonomous agents that just kind of did whatever, what if we actually guided them a bit? And so I started thinking of it in terms of structuring it like a company. And so typically with a company, you've got kind of the head of the company, let's say the CEO, who really sets forth the direction of the company. And then they have, let's say, a C-suite around them who has the goal of figuring out what each part of the company needs to do to come together to fulfill the vision for the company. And then each of those people talks to their departments and says, okay, well, this is what we need to do. And they're like, okay, well, you're on social media, you're on blogs, you're on this marketing channel, you're running advertising. Okay, software team, you're building this, you're building this, you're building this, right? And so it starts at the top and trickles down, and that becomes a very powerful way. And so it's funny because at times I really hate the whole idea of the hierarchy. But one thing I found when I was studying things is that the hierarchy is actually a great way to distribute information and move it up and down the chain. And so the ultimate goal should be to put the power of the decision making down to the bottommost level you possibly can. And if you can do that effectively, you're going to have a very well-run company. So how does this apply to AI? I started out by throwing together an API where I can send a message. In this case, I'm going to be the CEO and I'm going to set the strategic direction. But I want people who can actually figure out the problems at the lowest level possible. I started off with a ghostwriter. And initially, I had this idea of having like a general staff member who had a little bit of customization on each piece that would allow it to run like an agent. I've been really playing around with like the plan and execute agents, but ultimately that was tougher than I was hoping, because what I found is as I'm like building this, I'm like, okay, well, I kind of have this idea of a set of steps that I want to take in order to make this ghostwriter effective. And with the plan and execute agent, I wasn't able to kind of get it to follow the steps I wanted. It would make up its own. It would occasionally do some weird things. And so I decided to constrain this a bit more and just have this ghostwriter write tweets in a very specific way. And so I'm going to chain together multiple calls in order to make it behave the way I want. And so it still has a level of flexibility there and creativity that it can take in specific steps. But overall, the structure of the process it's taking is controlled. And I think this is actually a very powerful way to think of things. Instead of making it all autonomous, put it in these very constrained flows and use that to actually accomplish something. And so now what I can do is I can actually send an API request and it will go in. And ultimately I had this idea of like having like a receptionist node that will figure out how to route the request. I may end up changing this a bit, but ultimately that's kind of the way I'm thinking about it, is like, okay, so it comes in, we have some sort of agent for routing, so the receptionist in the office building, if you will, who will figure out why you're here, what you're looking for, who you need to talk to, and where to send you, and then pass that message along. And then from there, it can actually handle it. Right now, all it does is I can get it to write a tweet, but it writes a tweet. And so as I'm going to build this out, I'm going to start adding in multiple responsibilities and try to get it to think longer term and get all these pieces to work together collaboratively, much like building an actual company. And so we'll see where this goes. This is going to be an ongoing series in how I am putting all of this together to make it work, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.